somewhat familiar.
You think you could
Quote it? No, definitely
quote
not.
it? No? Okay.
Fairly familiar.
Fairly familiar? Could
Yeah.
you say maybe quote it off the top of your head or not that
I
familiar?
quote the latter part of it.
Okay.
I'm pretty darn familiar with the Elon University mission statement.
Pretty good guess.
Yeah.
And
I don't have it memorized, but I'm pretty familiar with it.
I would say yes.
Okay. Why or why not?
So, a lot of these things, we have a strong core curriculum, for one, that fosters a lot of growth and development in the liberal arts. Students have to complete the core requirements before really engaging in their major requirements. And we have a really strong interdisciplinary approach at Elon. When you look at the number of majors out there that are interdisciplinary in nature, we have a lot that students can use. We have a very liberal policy that allows students to petition faculty to allow courses that might be interdisciplinary in nature to count towards major or core courses. And so I think those are all positive signs that Elon supports, stands behind the mission statement that they put forward.
I think yes, in a variety of contexts.
Okay.
So mission statements are also never really meant to be fully achieved, or else they would be not mission statements. So it's very aspirational, which is one of the reasons why I like it, but it's also intentionally vague because you never really fully know if you've achieved active global citizenship motivated by concerns for the common good, So yes and no.
Yeah, I think anytime we do any strategic planning, we review the mission statement to see what changes need to be made as the institution changes. So that mission statement that you have was last reviewed 5 years ago. So I think it does define who we are, but it's also a living document that has to be reviewed.
Okay.
One thing that I noticed, that seems to be a little bit missing from the mission statement is Elon's focus on high impact practices. Elon is the only institution in the nation that actually has successfully achieved all of the 8 high impact practices across the board. So we're in unique standing in having achieved that, and seeing more of that embedded within the mission statement, I think would make our mission statement a little stronger, especially considering how important co-curricular learning is to the academic integrity and pedagogy in the classroom.
Could you give a little bit more detail about those high impact statements?
Yeah, so a lot of the things that we focus on, global education, which is listed in the mission statement, but we also have service and research and internship and leadership. And so while we have one listed in the mission statement, at Elon we consider all 5 part of that experiential learning requirement that students have to complete. Actually 2 experiential learning requirements. So maybe more depth associated with those 5 experiences would be something that I think the mission statement could maybe expand on a little bit more.
Yes. So I think Elon is inspiring in a lot of ways. Elon is also potentially short-sighted in a lot of ways, and thinking more holistically, more systemically about. So I keep on harping on number C because that's the one we talk about most often in our office. Global citizens motivated by concern for the common good. What does that mean? Right. Who defines good? Who defines global citizenship? So there's lots of stuff in here that, again, is good, is aspirational, is exciting, but is also ill-defined. And so in order for us to really talk about how are we doing that systemically, efficiently, effectively, we need to know what we're talking about. And I think there's a lot of confusion broadly defined amongst faculty, amongst staff, amongst students of how Elon goes about accomplishing certain facets of that, and what my role, for example, is in accomplishing the mission statement. Right. We talk about the letter C a lot. You can think about motivating by concern for the common good. So in our world, that's a lot of community identified needs and looking at what local, global, international communities' assets and strengths and weaknesses are, and how we can best assist in whatever that development is for that community. We also talked a lot about sort of that intellectual community aspect and that intellectual social climate engagement, all of that playing together. So in order for folks to feel like they are at home in a community, they need to know who that community is, but they also need to be engaged intellectually and academically and socially with that community. And so really figuring out how do you determine where home is, what home is? How do you determine, how do you involve in a community? Who are the power players? What's the sort of dynamic culture in there? So there's lots of content to unpack in the community in terms of that intellectual climate.
I think you gotta roll it kind of all the way down and up through the institution. So the mission needs to go planning needs at the institutional level needs to go planning at the departmental level, and the reverse. So every department in the College of Arts and Sciences also has a mission statement. So I've asked chairs to reflect on how that department mission relates to university mission, and sometimes it will in key areas, hopefully around the passion of the liberal arts and sciences.
We would hope.
And there's also some, disciplinary specific foci, if you will. So I don't know that, I think it doesn't necessarily need to be revised right now, but I think we have to keep treating it as that living document.
Definitely global education.
Okay.
And we do prepare students to be global citizens. It's definitely, something that we strive hard to get every student to do a global education program. They put a lot of money into scholarships for students to be able to do global education program. They work with specialty groups like athletes to be able to try to find creative ways to work with their practice schedules to get them to study globally. So, the GEC and the provost office works hard to try to find creative solutions so that every student can have a global experience and perpetuate that sense of global, of being a global citizen.
I think the easy one would be the first one, in that we are very much an intellectual community with faculty dedicated to teaching, because that's the definition of the college.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the low-hanging fruit, the easy one. I think personally, again, in our office, we do a good job of that, preparing folks to be active and engaged global citizens. And then sort of integrating that with the last one too, of fostering respect for human differences, recognizing where differences exist in communities, and then working to not necessarily overcome those, but working within those differences, and recognizing and appreciating those differences for what they are, instead of trying to sort of breeze past them, if you will.
I think there's a lot of assertions in the mission statement that really directly impact on who we are and that we live. So global citizenship, that piece, the liberal arts, that piece, but also I think inclusivity, and I think all of those are kind of key components that define us.